Let's talk about your personal story. And I know from your book, Work of Art,
Oh,
you had a daughter, Ever.
I did. Yes,
And was that through natural conception and
it
fairly
was.
easy?
It was. Yeah. She's 14 now. So I have a teenager, which still blows my
I,
mind.
I have two of them.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. We need to talk offline about, I have so many questions. Um, no, but she's amazing. And I had her, when I was in my mid 30s. So, I always say when I'm telling my story, I really didn't know much about my fertility. I didn't know about how hard it would be as you got older to have a baby because all we learned in school growing up was don't get pregnant. It's really easy to get pregnant if you don't wear a condom or don't use
Mhm.
protection. You're going to get pregnant if you're having sex. And, obviously, very well. And most people know that now because I feel like it's talked about more often, but that's not how it works always. It's not that easy. Point being, we had moved to New York. I had a career change and I got transferred to a different job. And when my husband and I moved to New York, we had just turned 29 and we were like, we're going to a new city. We don't know anybody. I don't even know how to ride the subway. I can't bring a baby into this world yet. We knew we always wanted to have kids, but we're like, we've got plenty of time and both of our careers were going really well, all that stuff. So we waited, I just figured I was looking at, Hollywood and seeing people having babies later in life. And again, this is a while ago. So people weren't as open about what might have been happening behind the scenes, whether it be IVF or surrogacy or donor eggs or sperm or whatever, the case may be. So we did have my daughter. I gave birth to her when I was 35. And then it wasn't for a couple more years that we waited, that we started to try to have baby number two. We had wanted a second kid. I loved being a mom. I actually surprised myself at how much I loved being a mom. I mean, I was just absolutely smitten with my daughter, as I talk about in the book.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, that's the interesting thing about secondary infertility, too, which I'm happy to delve into more is like, some people don't understand, like, why can't you just be happy with one or be happy with what you have? Why are you putting yourself through this? And with me, I always try to explain it wasn't that I wasn't happy with what I had. It was that I was so happy with what I had that I wanted
Mhm.
more. I
Mhm.
wanted to
Many
be a
women
mom
have
all
said
over
that.
again.
Mhm.
And, it's hard to explain, I feel like, if you're not in it or if you haven't really gone through it. So, yeah, so I ran into problems, having our second kid. I was finding myself getting pregnant fairly easily, but I had 4 miscarriages between my daughter and then when we started to do IVF, where I eventually did have my son. And when I finally saw a specialist, he said, this is age related. As you get older, the egg quality diminishes and you've got a very good quantity of eggs. But, what's happening is these low quality eggs that aren't going to make healthy embryos and healthy babies. Those are the ones you're getting pregnant with. So your body's actually doing the right thing by having these miscarriages and, getting rid of these unhealthy pregnancies. I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but that's how I understood it. And he said, you're actually a perfect candidate for IVF. If we can find these healthy eggs, which I'm sure you have because you have a big reserve, and we, match them up with your husband's healthy sperm, you should be able to get some healthy embryos out of it. So that was totally mind blowing to me because I didn't know anything about IVF. I always say I thought it was for people that wanted like multiples, or I thought it was like a choice. Like I really didn't know. That's how clueless I was. So I think that was part of the reason that eventually I went on to do all the stuff that I'm doing is because I think people need to know all this stuff. Knowledge is power. And had I known now, then what I know now, life would have taken a totally different turn. We wouldn't have waited so long, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
obviously happy with the way it all turned out because we do have our son through IVF and he's amazing. But, had I known, I wouldn't have waited.
If there was more awareness on the situation, I think that's where I lucked out. As at age 31, I was told I would never be a candidate for in vitro because my FSH was too high and my egg supply was too low. And they worried that if they gave me the medications, it would push my ovaries so hard that I'd go into menopause and that would
Oh,
be
wow.
it. That was what they knew in 2001. And so when you're told that you cannot do something and you're a persistent person like I am, then I just pushed into, okay, what can I do? But I realized there wasn't a whole lot of awareness of fertility and how to improve it, for sure. Especially with all that messaging of don't get pregnant. Whatever you
Absolutely.
do, don't get pregnant. That
Yeah.
messaging, I think, really has affected us as a race.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes up in pretty much every show because I always do like to ask my guests, like, what did you know about sex education? And most people say, not much. We
Mhm.
learned how to put a condom on a banana, and that was kind of it.
And the most common thing that I hear is, I wish that the information that I teach in the SEED program about how to flow through the 4 phases of the cycle, that we were taught that. How come we're not taught that in the health class?
Mm-hmm.
But, the conversation's always shifting.
Right. I mean, I think that, thankfully now that, people are out there talking about it more, the generations to come after us will have more information. And I mean, I see it already with, the young women in their 20s and 30s and freezing their eggs and, et cetera.
Well, 500%. I agree with you as your kids, and we're kind of jumping ahead, but they know about IVF, and my kids know about eating seeds and doing acupuncture, taking herbs, working with a team, personal discovery work, and personal preparation for parenthood.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
My daughter is 16 and a half, and my son is turning 16 in June.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, he's turning 14 in June.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Same as ever.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Yep. So back to your story. I'm just curious, those 4 losses that you had, we don't know that they were related to age, or did you do some testing and make sure that there wasn't an immune problem?
No,
or a thyroid problem?
we don't know for sure. I didn't do any testing on them. But that was, my doctor's best guess based on what he saw when he did the workup. So those losses happened before I was under his care. But it was just like, based on what I see here, that was probably the reason they were, chromosomally abnormal embryos. Because then when I did do IVF and I had my embryos tested, I sent 5 for testing, and 4 of them came back unhealthy, and only 1 of them was euploid, embryo that I was able to transfer, and that ended up becoming my son. So
that is Sunny. Okay.
Yeah, Sunny.
Wow. And so you had that experience to know what your audience is doing, the injections, mixing the hormones to do the injections, the retrieval, the appointments. And so when you're connecting with your audience, how do you help normalize that process, especially for the listeners that are thinking about doing IVF? They may be so terrified of needles, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
It's so true. It still blows my mind that I remember getting this big box of medication, and I'd gone through some minimal training of how to do the injections, but it was like, you don't really remember in the moment. And I remember saying to my husband, so I have to mix this with this and do this at a certain time. Like the stakes seem so high, and there really didn't seem like much margin for error. Like I was like, what if we screw this up? This is $4,000 worth of drugs that they're, trusting me and everybody else who goes through this to do on our own. Like, this is crazy. I guess that doesn't really answer your question or help people that might be nervous about it, because it is really nerve-wracking.
No,
but I will say this, there's so many more resources out there now that help you, that can talk you through this. You can do like a live call with a nurse and, figure out, like, do the injections that way. Or you can, Fertility Rally, we've got these really active Facebook groups where people are like, can somebody call me and help me with my PIO injection? And, there's so many other people, TikTok even, which is really, I know it's controversial right now, but I've talked to a lot of women lately who said that they get a lot of their fertility information from TikTok, and, just other women around the world going through this and saying, okay, I'm about to do my injection, and showing how they do it, and, all that stuff. So I think that's one of the good parts of social media, is just spreading this, knowledge, and women, again, helping each other out.
Exactly. Yep. They also have here in LA, I don't know in New Jersey, but we have nurses that will make outcalls to your house and do the injections for you. I think what's most important is for us to say yes until you get going and you understand what's involved. It is scary. Even coming for a first acupuncture appointment is scary. When needles are involved, that's not that's not a fun that's not easy to get your head around. However, once you just kind of go over that first hurdle, um, and or you find somebody to help you, it's all of this is bringing courage and telling the universe or God, whatever, I really want this, and I'll do what it takes, and I'll bring my best self to the picture. I'll be my most courageous self and keep an open mind that I can do this, right?
Absolutely. And, I would have done anything when I was going through it. I did acupuncture. I went to a psychic. I drank all the potions and, took all the supplements, and, anything I could find that might give me like a leg up. I remember like running things by my doctor, and he was so cool because he like would email me back and be like, can I do this? What about this? And he would always be like, it's not going to hurt if it makes you feel better, then, stuff like that. But yeah, it's so not an exact science too. And everybody's obviously very different, their bodies and what they're going through. So there's no like one size fits all fertility treatment. So, I was kind of like, I'll do it all. If someone told me, I have to wake up at 2:53 a.m. and stand on one leg and eat like 700 grapes or whatever, like I would have done that. Like, I'm like,
Mhm.
because I was so desperate to have the second kid, and so much of it is out of your control.